global population is, I think that's more or less the same as in 2020. So that stayed level. Basically no emissions except in the Middle East, which is not a lot either. I have plenty of support except in North America and Japan, but whatever. And look, we've won at a score of 6,800. That's actually my highest score thus far. Let's see some statistics. Emissions have been reduced severely, obviously. Okay. GDP seems to have reached the same levels as in 2040, which is when we banned coal. So basically what we've managed to accomplish is in like 150 years, I think, we've basically managed to switch the planet over from a fossil fuel based, very emitting economy to a completely renewable based economy, and the economy is on the same level. So people aren't living in worse conditions or anything, but everything is solar powered, so that's kind of cool. Population is actually more or less the same as at the start. As you can see, we started in 2020 and it's about the same height, although as I can see it has reorganized a bit, because India has a lot less now and Latin America has a bit more, Middle East has a bit more. China has significantly less people now, so as you can see, things have kind of balanced out a bit more since the start. And if you check out the HDI rankings, obviously Russia is highest, since they basically survived every. Actually, I'm not going to talk about that here. I'm just going to go over each region on its own. Temperature increase is 2.6. This could have been lower if I had started using the aerosols in 2 regions instead of 1. So I suppose that's a lesson to learn. I honestly didn't know that at the start. Final ppm is 576, which is more or less okay for this temperature, which means there aren't any extreme droughts or anything. Which means that using the aerosols didn't actually screw things up. Geez, what else? Yeah, I'm just gonna... oh yes, let's look over these. Landmark species, I think I lost like 2 or 3. Preventing that shouldn't really be that hard. I should have actually built reservations in a few places when I had the cash. The only place where it's really easy to lose a species is South Africa, where you pretty much always lose the rhinos. they always become extinct first. So if you want to prevent that, you'll probably want to build a reserve in South Africa ASAP. Avoid Amazon rainforest collapse. I did that. I don't know why there aren't any ticks here or something. I'm not sure how this works. And warming never exceeds 2.5 degrees. I technically failed at that, but as I said, it was actually very, very close, and just 2 aerosols instead of 1 at the start, and I would have been fine. So that would have actually added 2,000 points, which would have made my total score almost 9,000, which is pretty good. And yeah, obviously I managed that. Megadeaths have been avoided, yes. So yeah, let's look over the regions a bit. I'm not gonna go into too much detail over that. North America has restored its HDI over 0.9, making it a developed region once more. And this was despite the fact this blue line is the global average, by the way. 0.9 is a bit above that. Well, they started out very high and quickly fell, and they never went too low, but kinda stayed at that level. But as you can see here, I think I researched, well, they researched on their own actually, quantum computers around at this time, and it kind of started increasing after that. I also got the solar correctors working at this time, which basically meant the end of any sort of shortages. Apart from this, well, their GDP, actually this is not a very good measure, their GDP per capita is not that bad, not that good either, but it's still above the global mean, by not much, but it is. Population seems to be more or less stable, and actually there's remarkably few elderly. I just noticed that, which is probably because life expectancy isn't that great. 76 years, that's not that good. If you compare, Russia has the highest, and the Middle East is the second, so this place is kind of average. And actually, looking at it, it's basically the same as it was at the start, just a few years difference. It's not that bad. Okay. Well, I'm not gonna talk about each and every region separately, but Latin America I've more or less neglected, because quite frankly they aren't a very problematic region. As you can see, even at the end I only have 4 agents, and actually probably 3 would be enough, all things considered, because I had 4 cards played all of one turn. So yeah, they're not a very problematic region, especially in Earth Day, because they're happy, they don't emit that much. I think they actually start out with quite a bit of renewables, so their economy didn't crash that bad. As you can see, their HDI actually didn't crash when I banned coal. It did crash a bit when I banned oil later on, which was around at this time, but it still stayed okay. So yeah, they won't give you much trouble. The population actually has increased quite a bit near the end, which is something to keep an eye on, but it's not that big of a deal. Europe has actually had an interesting story in this game, because obviously they start out with high HDI, but it quickly falls down, because they're actually kind of dependent both on coal and oil near this. Hang on, here we go. Yeah, as you can see, they use quite a bit of oil, they use coal, they use uranium, they use a lot of stuff for energy near the start, and I think they actually have a lot of transport too, so when you ban oil and coal, it really hurts their economy. Yeah, it kind of fell. Luckily they don't have that much population, although I think right now they actually have a lot more than North America, which is kind of odd. So they will come back up quite quickly. And as you can see, they have a lot of support for me too. So they actually never really gave me any trouble. So Europe is another one of those more or less trouble-free regions that just kind of stay steadily around like 0.8 HDI and don't really move from that until later in the game. Let's see. North Africa is a lot more interesting because in many ways it's the same as the Middle East, because well, they actually have the potential to grow really large, because well, actually I'm not quite sure why, to be to be quite honest. I'm not sure why. I think it's partly because they have a lot of natural resources of their own, and partly probably because they start out without a lot of people. So that gives them a lot more room to grow, because early on when there's a power shortage, it doesn't hurt them that much. So later on they can just grow a lot more. South Africa is traditionally well, not traditionally, but usually a poverty-ridden region, because they have, well, not at the start, but later on, their population booms really quickly. As you can see over here, it's far over 1.2 billion, which is a lot, and they actually become much the same as China or India at this point, except maybe with less crowding. So that definitely needs to be managed. They also have rainforests, so you probably want to take care of that. But apart from that, they're not that problematic, because unlike India, they actually have a lot more room, and they don't start out big, they just get that way later on. So they're a lot easier to control. I don't think I actually played, no wait, I did play one child policy for a while. But South Africa basically has either the potential to become really poor and overcrowded and have scarce resources, or it can become a good mid-range country, and in my case it was the latter. So if you take care, as you can see, apart from this drop, their HDI has pretty much constantly grown, which indicates growth in GDP as well, as you can see. And they actually grew into a very well developed region, so I honestly can't complain.